Howdy, I'm Derek, and today I want to share a few Excel tools that are really helpful for auditors and the people that work with them. The first 5 years of my career I spent as an auditor, and then the next 11 years or so I spent overseeing that audit relationship in controller and similar roles. And what I found is because of how much time you spend in Excel, it is crucial to work as efficiently as possible. And you can too with tools like these. All right, let's get started. Now, the first one here was really helpful for creating formatted Workpaper reference links in one step. So notice I'm clicking the little text box here. It goes back and forth with the amount that I'm trying to reference between two sheets, could even be between two files, etc. And it's in a text box, which is helpful because it doesn't clutter up the workbook cells. It keeps it out of formulas. It doesn't break when you insert and delete and whatnot, things like that. So when we're going to insert one, I'm going to run a tool called Insert Link Box right here. And it gives you a little form where you can fill in a couple of things. First one is, what are we going to reference to? So we're going to pick this 166,000 over here. We can even give it text to say what do we want it to say, as well as that backlink that can automatically be added by checking a box, which is the default. Okay, we're going to click Insert, and it's going to insert those for us. So now we can click through those as well, and notice that it included that backlink. You can just move that over a little bit if you want to. Super basic and simple, and again, it uses text boxes to keep the clutter out and make it very obvious what it is you're referencing. Now, the second one is really similar. Okay, so maybe you don't want the text boxes, maybe you don't need the link, but you want to have it called out or be very obvious what you're looking at that is a reference. Okay, so we're going to use another tool that's just Workpaper reference. And notice that it changed it from black to bold and red, or whatever formats you want. You could have fill colors. There's so many other things that you could use if you want to. Now, the third one, somewhat similar. One of the things that we had when I was an auditor is a kind of a custom little menu item that, or a bunch of menu items that had little tick mark symbols, and everybody kind of knew what they meant because you'd hover over them and it would show what they referenced or referred to or what the definition was. So this next tool is going to allow you to do the same thing. Notice we have a little pick list of the different tick marks you can set up, so just give it a label and then assign it to one of these items. We're going to pick item 2, and notice that it adds a tick mark for footed down. Okay, so then you can copy and paste that, or you can just insert it each time or select several cells if you want to, and you get to give it a little bit of formatted text or symbols or icons, pictures, etc. And it's going to be able to put that in there. And by using very consistent ones throughout your team and your business, it just makes it obvious what you're trying to say. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit with this fourth tool, which is crucial for navigation. I don't know about you, but when I was an auditor, I got a lot of files that had a ton of sheets in them. Okay, so one of the first things that I did is I'd run a pick list of sheets, a lot of actions on sheets that help with navigation and management, etc. But I'm going to use option T here, which lets you create a table of contents. So notice that these are all hyperlinks, so we can jump to any of these sheets that we want to just by clicking that. Makes it very easy to navigate. So the more sheets you have, the more time you'll save by doing that. Okay. Now the next thing that we're going to do is help address a little bit of risk. I would find hidden cells, so columns or rows, even sheets a lot of times, and found some interesting stuff in those hidden cells throughout the years. The thing about hidden cells is they're really easy to miss, and that's why I use this next tool. Okay, so we're in a sheet. It's not terribly obvious, but there are some hidden columns and rows. So I'm going to run a tool that is going to be able to toggle those. Okay, so just coming down here, because it's one I've run recently. Okay, you can unhide everything in the whole workbook or just the active sheet. Okay, and notice all those unhidden things are now visible. Now the tricky thing about this is you're like, well, now I got to know where to put things back. Well, this is easy because I put the word hidden in all of these, but if you didn't remember exactly what was hidden, it's kind of a pain to do that again. It's also several clicks. Well, not with this, because you just run it again and it will toggle those. And again, it's a hide everything or just the active sheet, and you can do that. The other thing it will do is create this sheet that lists out all the things that were hidden, columns as well as rows throughout your file that you have open. Okay, so really helpful, even shows you which sheet in which range right there. So very helpful for reducing risk and making sure that you are hiding and unhiding appropriately, and you know where those might be. Okay. Another tool that can be really helpful for identifying errors is highlighting any cells that have hard-coded values. Especially when you have those kind of mixed throughout your workbook, it might be really good to know where those are, especially if you're like me and you try to separate those. I try to have all the hard-coded amounts in an inputs and assumptions sheet or source data, and everything else generally has formulas. So what this is doing is it is using a formula-driven conditional format to highlight when it is not blank and when it is not a formula and when it's got it's not just text, right? So we're looking for a number in this case. Now you can also highlight where it's a formula part, like a +1 at the end, because people often forget those things. Okay, so that's a really helpful way to do that. And the way that I apply these is with another little pick list here, the conditional formatting settings that you're seeing here. And an option R is going to highlight those hard-coded values, and an F is going to highlight the hard-coded formula parts. So really helpful. You can toggle it on and off very quickly. Now the next tool that we're going to look at is covering comments. So let's say that we're looking at something, let's say the item right here, and we want to add a comment. Okay. But comments are tricky when they're all throughout your file, so it's helpful to centralize them. So this next tool is another pick list that gives you several comment-related things like insert one, resize it or position it, etc. But option F here at the bottom is helpful because it's going to create a sheet, or if you already have one, it will add that to the sheet. Notice as a sheet, the cell, the link, etc. And we can add a quick comment like, "Are we sure this is right?" Okay, so I've already kind of seeded that wording there. We're going to assign that to Jim. Okay, and the other thing is if you're on this sheet and you run that again, it's going to prompt you to say, hey, do you want to add that comment to that exact cell? And that's exactly what it did right here. So you've kind of got it both ways. Super helpful for centralizing all those comments. Even though comments have kind of evolved over the years with Excel, now they're more threaded and you kind of have a conversation, if you will. It's still helpful to see them all in one place, be able to track the status, who's got what, responses, etc. Okay. The next thing is going to help you review formula references. I saw a lot of workbooks that had some complex formulas in them, and just kind of tracking them back and forth, doing that auditing was a little tricky. Even with the Excel tools you have, tracing precedence and dependence and everything, the arrows are cool, but they get a little cluttered. So this next one is really helpful for seeing what references do you have in a particular formula. Notice in this formula up here, it's very basic. We're just adding some cells. And when you run this box, it's going to show what those are. And if they're in different sheets or files, it's going to show that at the side here. So let's say we do one like this, okay, where it's got a different sheet. So there's a sheet, there's a cell, and then the one below it. So same thing. If you have that whole thing and then you press enter, it's going to jump to it, okay? And you can run this again. It'll say, hey, do you want to go back? And here's what it's going to go back to. So very easy to hop between all those. Even though there's some shortcuts that kind of sort of do some of this in Excel, I find this really helpful because the more references in a formula that you have, the easier it is to move around with them, right? Now the next thing saves me several hours a year all by itself, okay? So I'm running the same search box that you can use to run these tools and do other things, but I'm searching for a file, specifically one that I use where I'm tracking push-ups. I've been doing this challenge this year, and notice I didn't know where that file was. I've literally just typed in PUSH as part of that file name. It tells where the folder path is, where the file name is. You can search within a range or even favorite that file, etc. With that in the search box, just press enter and it will open it for you. Okay, and now it can fill that in. I'll do that here in a few minutes probably. That is huge. It's very much like Googling for all the files that you've opened over the last, say, year or two. I can open them just about any file in a couple of seconds. And I got to tell you, that saves a ton of time. If you're like me, maybe you had one of those situations where you just couldn't find something and you ended up having to rebuild it. Nobody needs that. Use a tool like this to find things very, very quickly. And then lastly, wouldn't it be nice to see all of the errors you have within a workbook, formula errors? Okay, so I'm going to use that search box one more time to list out all of the errors that you have within a workbook. It's going to prompt you because it could take a while if you have a lot of formulas. In this case, we don't have that many, so we're going to run this and it's pretty much instant. And what it gives you is a list of the sheets, the ranges, the type of error, even a link to each of those errors so that you can then troubleshoot and address them. Maybe wrap them with the if error formula or something like that. Okay, but again, addressing risk, working more efficiently, that is the name of the game when you use tools like these. So there you have it, 10 awesome Excel tools that every auditor should be using to reduce risk, save time, and make Excel a lot easier to use. Make sure to download the example file that accompanies the article with this and a link in the comments below if you want to learn more from the examples just like we've looked at here. And if you want to use these tools and hundreds more that will save you hundreds of hours a year, check out the XLEV8 add-in at the link in the comments below, or you can go to the apps section at www.XLEV8.co. If you enjoyed this, please tell us what you like. That's always helpful feedback. Comment, tag, share with your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss out on other awesome tools, tips, and tricks. Thanks for watching, and have an excellent rest of your day.